for Dallas folks, I know that you've been to Dallas many times over the years, but something people here may or may not know is that one of your novels, The Ocean at the End of the Lane, was largely written here, as I understand it. So
It was finished in Dallas. I was probably about three-quarters of the way through. And I went to Dallas. I finished it. I typed it up as well. It was completely typed in Dallas. Went from sort of first to second draft. And I discovered, much to my surprise, that I'd written a novel in Dallas as well. I remember uh, sitting in a wonderful little coffee shop and doing that final word count and realizing that I had not written a novella as I had thought, but it's actually a novel.
and what do you remember most about sort of your trips to Dallas, or maybe places that you visited?
I, it's funny. I mean, I've been visiting Dallas now since about 1989 or 90, when I went to the Dallas Fantasy Fair as a
Hmm.
guest. And for me, the most thrilling thing that I remember in Dallas is the incredible people that I've met, beginning with, other authors and artists back in the Dallas Fantasy Fair when I was a baby. That's where I mean, by a baby, I mean, I don't know, 29. Um, but I made friends with my friend Scott McCloud and his wife, who've been lifelong friends. My friend Roger Zelazny, I met for the first time sitting next to him doing a signing in Dallas, at the Fantasy Fair, and I was incredibly excited. And I think my line was six people, and his went on for an hour. And I remember thinking, wouldn't it be amazing to be like him? And these days, now that I am, I'm like, wouldn't it be amazing just to have six people you could talk to?
And do you have a favorite place that you visited here in town during one of your trips?
I don't know. I love, I mean, my favorite place that I think I've ever been in Dallas was the glorious coffee shop in which um, it was a sort of veggie restaurant slash coffee shop, in which I finished Ocean, and I have absolutely no memory of its name. I just remember absolutely loving the whole ambience, which felt like a sort of ancient apothecaries with comfy chairs.
And how important is art, like the sort of collectibles that you have up for auction this week, to your creative process, and what do you kind of draw from it as a storyteller?
I love being around art. Um, Ever since I was a young writer, I've been really fortunate in that I've been working with artists. I've got to work with people like Charles Vess, like Dave McKean, like Michael Zully, these amazing artists, Joel Thompson, Colleen Doran, geniuses. And so starting out in comics, you get really spoiled because there's art everywhere. And sometimes the artists give you art, and sometimes you fall in love with something and you buy a piece of art from them. And so that's always been incredibly important. I remember the very first piece of art, original comics art that I bought. I loved a comic called Swamp Thing, and art by Steve Bissette and John Totleben. And I remember going into the comics showcase shop in Neal Street in London, and it was pretty much the first money I'd ever made from buying from writing comics. And I thought, I'm going to buy some art for my wall, and I did, and it meant the world to me. Uh, so for me, art is always there. I love being around it. I love looking at it. I love the inspiration of it. I love the feeling of connection that you have sometimes with people who are dead. Um, some of my favorite pieces of art are things like, art by Charles Addams, who created the Addams Family and who died 30 years ago. Art by Edward Gorey, who died about 22, 23 years ago. And it's always inspirational to me. But there's also something really special about original art where you can look and you can see the blots, you can see the things that happened to them, sometimes little doodles, sometimes notations that they made. Sometimes in the case of Edward Gorey, you just look at these tiny lines and wonder how anybody could have made such tiny lines.
And so tell me a bit about kind of how the idea to do this auction came about and kind of why now was kind of the right point in your career to sort of open the vault like in this way.
So a couple of years ago, my friend Jeffrey Notkin told me he was doing an auction with Heritage. Jeffrey and I go back, we were schoolboys together. We were at the same school. We were in short trousers. When we got a little bit bigger, he played the drums in my punk band in 1976. You know, we go back. And Jeff became one of TV's meteorite men. He became a top dealer in meteorites and cool things that fall from space. And he said to me, I'm doing an auction. And I said, why? He said, well, what I'm actually auctioning off is the things that I'd kept over the years, finding meteorites, buying and selling meteorites, my favorites. I've kept them all. And I said, well, why would you sell them? And he said, to do good. And he had two huge reasons for auctioning off these meteorites, one of which was they had given him joy for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And he thought it was time that they could give other people joy. And the other was going, there are charities out there, I can give money to them, which he did. And the auction was so successful, he did another one. And charities benefited, people were very happy. And Jeff kept saying to me, you should do one of these. And I thought about it. And then I thought, for me, yes, I can do good with charity. Yes, it would be really cool. It would be really cool to get some of these things off my walls and out onto the walls of people who haven't been looking at them for 40 years and won't be taking them for granted. But the thing that began to fascinate me was the prices of art. The fact that when I bought those Swamp Thing pages, I paid, I don't know, 50, maybe 60 pounds, which would have been worth maybe $80 at the time, which would have meant the artists would probably have been given $40 for those pages. And things that sold or were given away that were worth tens of dollars back then are worth thousands and tens of thousands, occasionally even hundreds of thousands of dollars now. And I thought I really would like to help normalize in America a thing that is very normal in France and to some extent in the UK, which is the idea that the original artist gets a royalty, gets a share, gets some of what they created. Because what you have is a situation in which fabulous artists made amazing things a long time ago and gave them away or sold them. And now they're going to sell for an incredible amount of money. So the thing that actually made me go, I think I want to do this, was just the idea of going, because I want to give the living authors, the living artists here, a share of what it makes. And yes, some will go to charity. The two charities I picked, one is the Authors League Fund, which helps look after authors who have fallen on hard times. And one is the Hero Initiative, which helps comics people who've fallen on hard times. And again, it's that idea that we've had people who've created the stuff that heritage auctions and so forth get to sell for incredible amounts of money now to collectors. Let's see about getting some of that stuff back to them.
That's fantastic. But how do you even begin to sort of curate a Neil Gaiman collection? Kind of, what was that process like for you, and how did you kind of go through what you wanted to be part of it?
So there were about half a dozen very nice people from heritage auctions who came up to my house in Wisconsin, and I walked with them from the cellar all the way to the attic, going through every room with them going, "Oh my gosh, you've got this." And me going, "Yeah, why? Do you think somebody would like that?" And them going, "You're nuts, right?" And I'm like, "No." And we walked through, there was a lot of stuff that they were incredibly excited by that I went, I'm not actually ready to let this go yet. And I was very, very good with myself on that. If there was anything where I went, I would be sad if this went away. The money or whatever good it does is not going to replace the fact that I would like to be able to look at this on my wall and be happy. And so those ones they didn't get. But there was a lot of stuff where I was like, actually, I love the idea of this going out and making somebody happy. The Watchmen page. I have this page from Watchmen that Dave Gibbons and Alan Moore gave me back in 1986 because I helped Alan do some research for Watchmen and titled some episodes and stuff. And I love it. And I love it because it's a dream. And I went on to write Sandman. I love it because it's the only 17 panel page in the whole of Watchmen, which is famous for being on a 9-panel grid. And this is 17 panels on this page. I love it because it's got the famous kissing skeletons of Watchmen are on there. And in fact, one of the panels from my comic was blown up and was on the graffiti, huge, amazing edition of Watchmen where they reproduced original pages and stuff. And I look at it and I go, you are going to make somebody so happy. You've been making me so happy now for almost 40 years. And now you can bring joy to somebody else. And all I hope is that they'll hang it on a wall and that anybody who comes to their house will be shown this piece. I hope it doesn't go into a vault or something like that. I just want it to be shown. I want it to make people happy.
And as an art enthusiast, is there maybe a fellow author whose collection you would kind of most like to get the opportunity to go through?
If if it was like supermarket sweep with somebody else's art collection, you've got a crowbar, a shopping trolley, and 5 minutes to run. Guillermo del Toro. I'm taking out Guillermo's collection. It's like, every one of the things I love about Guillermo is he has exquisite taste. And there are so many pages and things that Guillermo have that I'm just in love with. So yeah, I'd ransack Guillermo's collection, I think, in a moment.
And as an art enthusiast, do you have kind of a favorite piece or like a favorite showpiece in your home that you like to show people when you're showing them around?
I do. My very favorite thing of all that I take people and show them is a drawing of Winnie the Pooh and Piglet done by E.H. Shepard in the late 1930s. And he did it it's 2-color art because he did it with black paint and white paint on gray paper, and it's them walking in the snow. And I love it so much. It's like, here is something that not only contains my childhood, but also is an evocative and perfect little piece of artwork.
And if you'll indulge me, kind of as a fan, kind of what can you share about the status of Good Omens season 3?
It's being written. I can share with you that I stopped writing it to come and do this call. So that is how much it is being written right now. I think it's really good, and we're almost halfway through it. And uh, what can I share? People will be. I can share with you that there will definitely be people returning from previous seasons.
How many people will be angry with me for having you come on the call to stop writing Good Omens season 3? Anyway.
I think they'll all forgive you because they know it's for such a good cause.
And what's the likelihood of another Neil Gaiman written Doctor Who script?
Um, I don't know. For right now, that's something that if I stopped writing Good Omens to write an episode of Doctor Who, I think everybody would be very angry with me. Um, I hope, life is long. I hope I get to play in the Doctor Who sandbox again. But I also have to say, as somebody who has played in the Doctor Who sandbox, it's really fun to be a fan. It's really fun not to have read all of the scripts of that season. It's really fun not to have been shown behind the scenes and know what's coming up. I kind of love being a fan. I have an 8-year-old son who is an even bigger Doctor Who fan than I am, if such a thing is possible. And he gets very frustrated that I don't know what's going to happen. And he's like, why don't you just write to Russell T Davies and ask? And I'm like, because I don't want to. I want to be surprised. I love the joy of not knowing what's coming.
And do you have sort of favorite things maybe that you've been able to read this past year? Sort of new books?
Um, my favorite book that I've read recently is an incredibly old book. In fact, it may be one of the oldest books that we have, and it's probably the oldest novel that we have. It's called The Golden Ass by Apuleius, and I read it in a translation. I've read it before, but a wonderful translation by a lady named Sarah Rudin, which managed to be really funny. And I loved that she got the wordplay and the humor of this very strange story about a young man who is changed into a donkey by witches and his misadventures thereafter.
Are there any other projects that you're able to talk about that maybe that you're most excited about right now?
Well, Anansi Boys, which is a novel of mine, is being transformed into a TV series, and we're just finishing up I say we're just finishing up with it's in VFX right now. All of the VFX stuff is being done. Um, I'm very much hoping it'll be on the screens this year. I'm really proud of it. And of course, Sandman season 2 is currently being shot, and it's astonishing. They've sent me a few episodes to watch. And the other thing that will be out within the next, I think, 6 or 7 weeks, definitely fingers crossed by the end of April, is Dead Boy Detectives, which began life as a Sandman spin-off. And then because Sandman was over at Netflix and this was meant to have been at HBO, we filed off all the serial numbers. And then HBO decided that maybe it will be happier at Netflix, and Netflix got all excited. So we had to sort of file on new serial numbers to plug it back into Sandman in different ways to the ways it had originally been. And it's so funny and cool and unlikely. It's just two dead boys solving ghost crimes.
And maybe is there a piece of art that maybe was particularly inspirational to you for any of your various projects?
I think of the things that are um up for auction, um I would say some of the Michael Zulli art is for me incredibly inspirational. Michael is a painter who works as a comics artist, and some of his paintings, some of his drawings, his work is so inspiring. And so I was really, it was one of those things where I decided that actually I did want to put a lot of Michael Zulli art into the auction just so that I could draw attention to how good he is, he is, how magical his.
And I guess sort of going back to uh, anything else you'd like to share, sort of about what the process was like of sort of going through these pieces and sort of uh, just that what that process was like for you as to be part of sort of curating this collection.
It it was funny, it was strange, it felt like, it felt a little bit like you'd cut off a finger and were selling it. Um, these things were part of me. There were definitely things where the heritage auction people said, you should auction that. I'm like, really? And then there were some things where, I remember Harlan Ellison um, trying to encourage me. Years and years ago, I sued a publisher called Todd McFarlane for some royalty non-payments and things like that, and won the case. Um, and Harlan Ellison, wild man of science fiction, trying to encourage me to sue and go legal, and he sent me a Todd McFarlane figurine from the Spawn movie, and Todd as a bum with a letter. And it's like, okay, I'm going to let that out because that is going to it's going to put a smile on somebody's face, having a letter from Harlan Ellison and a story. And I guess for me, that was the biggest thing, is it felt like every single thing in the auction was a story somehow.
And so tell me, what is it about I guess sort of the fantasy genre that you like, that kind of most draws you in to spend your time there, kind of in creating your worlds a lot in that genre?
I think it's just where my head goes. Um, it's one of those things where, I wish I had a nice, easy, straightforward answer for you. I was sent here from the planet fantasy or whatever, but I really don't. It's, I think if you put me and John Grisham and Stephen King, maybe, out on a lake and you pointed us at a little lake house and said, write a story about that. Steve's would probably have a monster that comes up out of the lake and starts picking off the people who are partying in the lake house. And John Grisham might be hiding somebody from the mob there. And for me, the little house would probably sort of stand up on Baba Yaga chicken legs and walk off into the woods.
And a journalist to former journalist, kind of, is there anything else that maybe that you'd like to share sort of about this collection, or anything else that you have going on that I might not have touched on yet?
My God, I think we got everything. Um, that was an incredibly comprehensive interview. Just to say how lovely the people at Heritage Auction have been and how reassuring. Because doing something like this is very strange. I was most worried, I guess, about the artists because, especially some of these things I bought, but a lot of them were gifts.
Mhm.
And going, yes, I know it was a gift 35, 40 years ago, but it's still a gift. And do you auction that? And I think for me, that was a lot of why I loved the idea of doing the charity stuff and especially of giving back to the artists.